Hello and welcome to the trackrti tutorial. The purpose of this tutorial is to show you how to use the trackrti web application to create interactive progress monitoring graphs for your students. I've split the tutorial into two parts because the file size gets kind of large and they take too long to load, so I split it into two parts. When you purchase a subscription to trackrti on the Teachers Pay Teachers website, within 24 hours of that, your name will be entered into the system, and you can come to this web page. The address is provided on the file that you download, and you can enter your Teachers Pay Teachers username into this form. Click on enter, and then you're created with a form to create an account for trackrti. So I'm going to enter a username, a password, confirm the password just so I'm sure that I typed in what I thought I typed in, an email address, and a school name. Alright, now before I enter this information, I'd like to point out that this is a secure site. If you look at the address bar, it is a secure page. Any data that is sent back and forth between this site is encrypted. Alright, so I'm going to click on enter. And the new account is created, and I'm taken to the main page of the application. This large grid area here that's empty, because we haven't created a chart yet, that's probably the first thing you would notice. That's where the charts will appear once you've created them. So the first thing I'd like to show you is how to create a new chart. So I'm going to click on this link that says Create New Chart, and that will open up a dialog. And there's a series of 3 of these. The first question that it asks you is, when your graph is complete, how many data points do you expect it to contain? This can be an estimate because you can change it later. And the limit would be about 50 because that's all that will fit on the graph without getting too crowded. So I'm going to choose 30. The next question asks, how many data points would I like to enter at this time? Most of the time, as you're doing assessments, you're going to be entering data points 1 per student when you enter them. But you can choose the number of data points that you want to enter. I'm going to choose 5 for right now. And the next thing is to choose a title for the chart. I'm going to call the chart Reading Fluency Progress. Alright, now if I had students' names already entered into my account, and if this was for an existing student, I would be able to choose their name from this drop-down menu. Since this is a new account, there are no names in there. So I'm going to add a new student. And you can add a new student at any time. Oops. I'm going to call my new student George Washington and click on enter. Alright, that takes me to the next step. The first thing I need to do here is set an x-axis label. The x-axis is the horizontal axis at the bottom of the chart. And that axis is going to show the dates that the assessments are given, or the date that the data is entered for that assessment. So I'm going to call that Reading Probe Dates. Alright, now I'm going to enter my 5 data points. These would represent how many words the student read in that 1-minute probe. So I'm just going to make these up as an example. All right, now I can enter a second set of data for errors. This would be how many words the student read incorrectly in this case. Okay, and I'm going to enter that. All right, now this is the last part. I need to enter dates that correspond with those data points that I entered. So I'm going to click in this text field, and when I do that, this calendar is going to pop up. Now I can click on as many dates as I need to while this is open, and then close it by clicking on Close. All right, so I've entered 5 data points, so I need 5 dates. I'm going to start with every Monday and Friday in September. There's 4, there's 5. If I clicked on a date by mistake, I can just click on it again and it goes away. All right, so there are my 5 dates. I'm going to close that. I'm going to go on to the aim line. The aim line starts with the baseline, which in this case I'm going to use 50. And it should end at your goal. All right, so I'm going to say the goal is 100 words per minute. Now the y-axis legend is the vertical axis on the left-hand side, and that is going to show the number of words per minute. So I'm going to call that words per minute. All right, now here I'm going to designate the name of the group that this student and this assessment belong to. For instance, I don't have any groups yet, so I'm going to create a new group. Say I have a reading group. So just call the group Reading. Maybe I'll call it First Period Reading. All right, now within that First Period Reading group, I may have students taking several different assessments. So I'm also going to designate which assessment this would be. And again, I need to create a new one. So I'm going to call it Reading Fluency. I may also be doing other assessments with the group. I might be doing a maze kind of assessment. But this particular group and assessment is going to be for the reading fluency. This is important because if I want to, the application will automatically compute a class average. So for every student in this group who's taking the same assessment on the same day, that data will be averaged by the application, and then it can create a third data line which will show the class average, so that you can compare the progress of a student to the progress of the class as a whole. Okay, so when I click on Enter, it should create the new chart, and there's the chart that I've created from that information that I entered. Okay, you can see now that at the top of above the chart, above the title, George's name now appears at the top. And if I mouse over it, I can see some of the options that I have for the chart, of different chart views. Okay. Here's the title of the chart. On the left hand, the y-axis. We've got the label here, words per minute. Here we've got our dates for the 5 probes, and here's our x-axis label. All right, now down here in our search form, I should now have the name of the group that I entered, the assessment name that I entered, and so far I have one student. So this search form isn't of much use at this point because I only have one student entered into the system. But when I have a lot of students entered and a lot of different groups of students taking different assessments, I can use this to search for groups of students. I can search by group and assessment. I could search for all the assessments of a certain student, regardless of group or assessment. So that comes in handy once you have your application populated with a lot of students. All right, now you notice if I mouse over any of these points, it shows me the value of the point, and the cursor also turns to a hand, which means that that point is a link. All right, so if I click on any of these points, a dialog appears which offers me several options. I could delete the data point. I could change the value if it was a mistake. I could designate it as a phase change. And if I decide to do that, I can add a note to remind me what the phase change consisted of. And I can show you that in just a couple minutes. Okay. So let's say I'm not happy with George's progress. He doesn't seem to be really progressing. And if we take a look at his trend line, you can see that his trend is negative. All right. So if I want to do an intervention, let's say the intervention starts after this date. All right. So this would be the end of this first phase because the phase change would designate the beginning of a new intervention or of a new approach. All right, so I'm going to designate this as a phase change. In my note, I'm just going to call it phase change 1. Click on set phase change, and that point is now designated by a star. So I know that a phase change took place there. All right, what I'm going to do next is add some data points so that I can show you how we can use the unique trend lines to show a student's progress before a phase change and after. So down here in this table, I'm going to click on the link that says Add Data. I'm going to just take note of what date the last data point was entered on. That was 9/16. All right, so I'm going to click on Add Data. And let's add 5 more data points. Okay, so I'm going to add those. All right, so there are the 5 new data points. Now if I come up here and instead of choosing a single trend line, I'm going to choose the unique trend line for each phase, and it's going to show me this negative trend line in the first phase and now a positive trend line in the second phase. All right, let's take a look at the information down here in the chart. This chart is always going to show you information for whatever, the information in the table here is always going to show you information for whatever graph you're viewing at the moment. Over here on the left, it shows the date that the chart was created. Here's the title. You notice when I mouse over that, it turns to a hand. That means that that is editable. So if I click on it, I can enter a new title if there was a mistake in the title. Same for the group, the student's name, and the assessment name. All right, this next link here is a data report. If I click on this, the data report shows down here. It shows me a separate report for each phase. It shows me whether or not there was an increase from 1 unit per assessment interval to the next. You can see here it was negative, and over here it was positive. Here's my phase change note, and each data phase, or each data point and date is shown for each phase. Alright, this was my add data link that we've already used. The next column shows the goal, where we set the goal at 100. And the goal can be changed if it needs to be. It could be raised if the student is progressing at a rate that shows that they're going to reach their goal before the 30 assessments is reached. And that is what this is showing right here. The success point is showing a prediction of when the student is going to reach the goal, if that is going to occur before the 30 assessments are done. And that's a mathematical prediction. Right, so this is predicting that he's going to reach the goal, or actually surpass the goal of 100 by the 13th data point. So that's going to come long before the 30 assessments are completed. So in that case, you might want to change the goal. You might want to raise it to 130. Right, so it's now predicting that he was going to reach that goal by data point 19. This is the sample size. That can also be changed if you decide that you're going to do fewer than 30 assessments or more. You can change that. This is a link to print the chart, which we'll do later, and this is a link to delete the chart if you needed to. If you clicked on yes, it would be deleted. Okay, I'd like to show you one more view before I log into another account that has more students entered into it, so I can show you some of the other features of the application. There's a view here called the extrapolated view, and that's kind of related to this predicted success point. If I click on that, the extrapolated view shows, and again, this is a mathematical prediction, it shows based on the student's current rate of progress when they would be predicted to reach their goal. So this is showing that he would be predicted to reach that by the 19th data point. If the student was not progressing well and there was not a predicted success point, it would say none in this column right here. Okay, at this point I'm going to log into a different account. And I'm going to pause the video here, and the rest of the tutorial will be on part 2. Thank you.